The 5 biggest mistakes I made when I first started leading worship. Coming up. Hey, Spencer here from leadingworshipwell.com. This is the place where we talk about how to lead yourself well, lead your church well, and lead worship well. I'm going to share with you in this video the 5 biggest mistakes that I made when leading worship. I've been leading worship now for 15 years, and I was just thinking the other day about all the mistakes that I made when I first started leading worship, and I thought it would be fun to share them with you. Before I share mine, though, I want to hear from you. I want to hear what's the biggest mistake you made when you first started leading worship. Think back to those days when you were a younger worship leader. What were some of the mistakes you made? Let us know. The funniest ones down in the comments below, and I'll talk to you in a second. Thanks so much for leaving your answer just down below. Here are the 5 biggest mistakes that I made when I first started leading worship. Mistake number 1 was this. I always picked song keys for myself. Now, mind you, I was not a very good singer in the first place whenever I first started leading worship. And not only that, but I was also a bass. Like, I sang really deep, and I've kind of stretched my range out since then. But I remember there were so many times when I would be singing in the basement, and it was bad. Like, I don't even know what notes I was singing, but I think I'm trying to think of what songs that I played, but like if I was doing Lord, I Need You, I still sing like kind of low nowadays because I'm still a bass. I can just hit some higher notes, but I was like comfortable like down here. So if I was playing Lord, I Need You, it would have been in like F or something. Today I would play it in A, but now I'd be like... And I'd start out, Lord, I come, I confess, bowing here, I find my rest. Without you, I fall apart. You get the idea. It's like low. Like I was probably singing like an E. Regularly. So, what I've learned is how to put songs in congregational friendly keys. I think maybe I will put like the counterpoint to how I fixed this mistake, because if I've identified the mistake at this point in my worship leading career, then hopefully I've fixed it as well. I think I've fixed all these by now because I'm not 13 years old anymore. So yes, what is the... Maybe you just pick song keys for yourself. And for some people, maybe that works because maybe you're an average singer and you can pick a song key that works for everybody in your church. But what I've learned is how to put song keys in congregational friendly keys. In keys that obviously not everybody has the same musical range, but there is a standard range of notes that you can put your songs in, or that you can pick keys that put your song in that range of notes that will serve the most amount of people possible. Like I said, there's like, guys typically sing lower, so we've got like down here, and then we've got the female end up here. There's somewhere in the middle there where the majority of the notes in your song should land. And so I actually made a video about that. I'll link that down in the description below. But that is the fix. That's the solution. Instead of putting songs in keys that just work for you, think about your congregation. And it's not about how good you sound for yourself. It's about it's about allowing your church to sing along with you. Because if you're putting your songs in keys that are super high, people are just going to drop out and not sing at all. Same thing. Too low, they're not going to sing like down here like I was doing, obviously. So find that sweet spot in the middle. I've got a video about that linked in the description below. Let's move on to mistake number 2. Mistake number 2 was that I just picked songs that I liked. Have you ever been there? You ever pick songs that you like? I think of the I'm pretty sure this is ironically, it's the first song that I ever learned on guitar. It's probably also the first one that I ever led worship. And I just played it because I liked it at the time. Like I said, it was the first song that I learned on guitar by Relient K, and it is sort of a worship song. It's called Never Underestimate My Jesus. Never underestimate my Jesus. The world around you crumbles. You will be strong, you will be strong. Think I can't, but I think you can. I think you can. Think I can't, but I think you can. I think you can. Anyone know that song? Relient K. I listened to a lot of Relient K growing up. And so I just picked a song that I was like, this song talks about Jesus, so it must be a worship song for our gathering, so I'm going to play that. And so I did, and I was like, it's like, I don't know, kind of a cheesy song. It's not really a song that works well in a church environment, but I liked it at the time, so I picked it. So, how do you fix that problem? Picking songs that I liked. Well, same thing, you lead with your congregation in mind, and you don't pick songs that you like. I mean, you can pick songs that you like, but that's not the primary reason that you pick them. You pick songs that people need to sing. Think about what's going on in the life of the people of your church, or what's, even if you just want to get more specific and more practical, think about what's going on in the service that you're about to lead in. Think about what your pastor's going to be preaching on, and then pick songs that support that. Or, if you're leading for the first time, think about songs that the people in your church already know. Your church doesn't want to hear you play a song that you like. They want to sing a song together that they all know. So keep that in mind whenever you're leading worship. That was the second biggest mistake I made. I picked songs that I liked, and I didn't really care what the people in my church thought about the songs. Mistake number 3. Biggest mistake I made when I first started leading worship was that I kept my eyes closed the entire time. Kept my eyes closed the entire time. And I think part of that was, you're just nervous when you're not used to being in front of people, and so it's a lot easier to just close your eyes and not see the people that you're leading. But we are supposed to see the people that we're leading because they're the people that we're leading. So I get it that you're nervous, and this is how I was. Like, I was nervous being in front of people. But the problem isn't so much at the beginning, I guess. I think that's just normal to close your eyes. But for a lot of us, and I know this happened for me, when I was a beginner worship leader, even like 5 years into worship leading, I kept my eyes closed the whole time. So don't let that nervousness, eventually you're not as nervous to be in front of people anymore. Like, even if you're still a little bit nervous to be in front of people, you're not as nervous as the first month that you did it, right? So just open your eyes. That's the solution. The solution to keeping your eyes closed is to open your eyes. I talk about that all the time on this channel, so I won't harp on it too bad because I feel like I've talked about it over and over again. But if you've never watched my channel before, we keep our eyes open because we want to see the people that we're leading. We want to engage them in our worship time, and we want to see where they are at in their worship experience so that we can lead them where we need to be as a church. And you won't see that if your eyes are closed the whole time. So I kept my eyes closed like literally 100% of the time, or if they weren't closed, they were staring down at my music stand. So just look at the people that you're leading. Fourth biggest mistake I made when I first started leading worship, and this kind of ties into keeping your eyes closed, is that I let my personal worship overtake corporate worship. I let my personal worship experience usurp my corporate worship experience, and I decided that it was all about me. And not like it was a show and it was all about me, but it was all about me having a personal time of worship. So when I got up on stage, as long as I was having a great personal time of worship, things must be going well. And so I did everything. This kind of all ties into that, What did I do? I picked song keys for myself because it was about personal worship for me. What else did I do? I picked songs that I liked because they were that's how I wanted to worship. I wanted to use those songs to worship. And I talked about how I kept my eyes closed because it was just me and God, right? That's not your role as a worship leader. It's not you just up on stage having your own personal time of worship and everybody else sees you and then they have their own personal times of worship. It's about us worshiping together. That's true not just for you as the worship leader, but for everybody in your church. We are not supposed to be having our own personal times of worship whenever we're gathered together on a Sunday morning. You can do that anytime throughout the week, so go do it throughout the week. We are called to worship together in the moment. So that's true for the people in your church, but it's even more true, I think, or more relevant to the leader of the moment, because if you get that right, then your church is going to get it right. So how do you lead corporately? You lead with other people in mind, and you make it not just about yourself. So I feel like I've really dove into that really since I started leading worship well. Is like that's one of the core principles of what I always talk about, is leading with others in mind. It's not just about you. We are leading corporate worship. And then finally, number 5, the temptation that we always have, but especially when we first start leading worship. The biggest mistake that I made when I first started leading worship was that I made it more about music than about worship. I made it all about music. I wanted to play the perfect guitar parts. I wanted to sound the best that I could sound. And I did that at the expense of worship. Not that those are like the opposite of each other. We can still sound really good and worship God. But when music overtakes the worship side of things, then music becomes an idol in worship. Music is just the tool, it's the method that we use to express God's worthiness and our thankfulness towards Him. But it's not the end in and of itself. And that's kind of what I did whenever I first started leading worship. And I was thinking it wasn't even just for myself, but I actually led a worship team when I was 16 years old, I think, 15, 16, somewhere in there. And during that time, that's how I led my team too. Like, we weren't a worship team. We weren't a group of worship leaders. We were just a band who got together, and we had to make sure that we had all the songs down pat so that we could lead worship on Sunday. And obviously God still used that for His glory, and He has grown me, and He's growing you wherever you are in your worship leading journey. So if you feel convicted by any of these things, don't be like, I need to stop leading worship. Just consider this part of the learning experience, and you will improve, just as I will continue to improve. I bet, 15 years from now, I will be able to look back and think, I thought I started leading worship 15 years ago from this year. I can look back and see how much improvement I made. I'm sure I still have just as much improvement to make in the next 15 years of my worship leading. So don't feel inadequate if you make these mistakes. Just learn from them and consider this part of the learning process. Now, if you want to jumpstart your improvement in your worship leading, I've got something for you down in the description below. I've got a link to a free audio training I put together called 5 Tips to Instantly Improve Your Worship Leading. In that audio training, I'll teach you 5 things that if you're just conscious of them and you make the effort to do them, they will improve your worship leading. So implement some of these things that I talked about in this video, but also check out that audio training down in the description below. Other than that, thanks so much for joining me. Until I see you in the next video, keep leading worship well.